it's awfully difficult to criticize yourself and to say, I need help. But you have to have the strength. I think in military terms, you have to have the balls to go ahead and do it. Get the help, because you can become a detriment to your unit. You can become a problem. You can become a problem at home. These things don't happen just on the battlefield. They happen in the home. You come back home and domestic disturbances and a breakup of marriages and hard feelings between sons and daughters and the father. Those all happen. You need to have the strength to go and get help. And those doors have to be open so that the person feels comfortable.
PTSD is the name that's given to psychiatric condition that consists of a group of symptoms. And how is it enough to bother you? That's in 3 different categories. One is re-experiencing. It has to be something that you think about when you don't need to think about it, or you dream about it, or that you even think it's happening again. Other group of symptoms, there's one that's relevant that really is that are arousal symptoms. Because what happens is PTSD is about a reaction to danger. People with PTSD typically have the kind of difficulty concentrating where it's not so much that they're not paying attention, but they're paying attention to everything at once. It's hard to focus on, say, a textbook because you're trying to maintain a 360-degree situational awareness.
You have to make them know that if they get in trouble, there's somebody to help them, and all they got to do is reach out. There's no stigma in it. It's just sometimes it's hard to cope with. I know in my case, when I came back, I didn't want to even be around my family. Didn't want to talk to people. And so I just takes realization, that you're not the only one there. You did everything you could, and you can't ask for more.
How bad does it have to be? Something to qualify as a sufficient stressor for PTSD, it has to be basically a threat to life or limb, yours or somebody that you're with.
When I came home in 1945, having been a recipient of the Medal of Honor, naturally my hometown went crazy. And from day one, they kept me so busy I didn't hardly have time to breathe. And the fact that I was invited to something almost every night for a week on end and asked about, how did you get the Medal of Honor? What happened? I had to talk about it, or, stay home. I elected to do that because I felt, first of all, I owe my Marines something that I was with, those guys that did more than I did. I owed them something. So I did talk about it a lot with civic organizations, Lions Clubs, and American Legions, and all of those. And that was a tremendous help to me because I was forced to share what I didn't want to share. And I really believe it was rehabilitative. I really do.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with asking for help, asking your squad leader, platoon sergeant for help, including medical help if you think it's necessary. There's absolutely nothing wrong. If you get shot up pretty bad, you don't hesitate about going for medical treatment, but there's a lot of times more than just being wounded, as you can be wounded in your mind.
PTSD stands for post-traumatic stress disorder, most commonly found among military personnel returning from war. The first signs of PTSD can be traced back to biblical times to King Solomon, who often had nightmares and couldn't sleep. He only wished to return back to the warfare he came from, a tall tale sign of typical PTSD symptoms. High stressful situations that may cause harm to a person, such as war, can cause mental damage even if the military member is not physically harmed. PTSD not only affects the military member, but their employers, family, and friends. This disorder can be treated with medication, as well as telling their stories to encourage others to also stand up to PTSD and fight one last time for the ultimate freedom. Join me on my quest to showcase our American heroes who have come home to face another conflict of now living with PTSD and their fight and struggle to find peace and salvation. These are their life stories of courage and bravery. They are among thousands of other military members who are currently experiencing PTSD and those who already have experienced a mental hardship. Together, we can bring our soldiers home, both physically and mentally. These are the stories of our unsung American heroes.
I'm Major Ed Polito, United States Army retired. Years ago, I'd see my father put on his combat boots and go to work. He taught me so many things, and I always credit my father as my hero, but a true American, because he is all about service to our nation, and also as Hispanic Americans that we have a vested interest to make a difference in this country. And that's why I joined the military, and for us, that's what it's been all about, service. It was August 17, 2004. We had just finished a mission with training the Iraqi army in a place called Taji, and now we were headed to Kirkuk. As I was driving, I was talking to my colonel about us coming home. And for that minute and instant, I hit that IED. I think about it a lot because I'm like, what if? But now that I think about it too, I think about maybe that's what was deemed for me on that day. I ended up at Brooke Army Medical Center for almost 7-8 months. I experienced 17 surgeries total. For 40 days, I was basically in ICU and under quarantine because I came back with E. coli and it's in the soil called Ancetobacter, and then 2 staph infections in the leg. Go from 195 to 118 pounds in a span of about 40 days. And I had the night sweats and the terrors and the post-traumatic issues that are related to the experience. And there were times when I was in that hospital where I thought to myself, man, I don't know if I can go on like this. And then when they took my leg away, deep inside, I felt like I'm not the same person anymore. What will my life be like in the future without a limb? How will I be able to walk? And more importantly, how will I be able to support my family? And to me, that was beginning to eat on me as well, where I actually thought about taking my life, because I just felt like I was not strong enough and I was not a real warrior. But in reality, it was just a trying time for me emotionally. But you get so many mixed messages. I had someone that, not in a negative way, just say, hey, you'll be okay mentally. You'll get over it. And in reality, I wasn't getting over it. But what changed was I began to reach out for support. I began to think about all these things need to be talked about. And so I began my recovery. And from there, I began to not only physically, but mentally and holistically approach my life.
I am Staff Sergeant Meg Krause. I was on active duty for 5 years. I joined the reserves when I came out of active duty. And now I'm the non-commissioned officer in charge of a battalion aid station for a combat engineering unit in Pennsylvania. Operation Rocky Freedom. I flew combat casualty missions. So we'd pick patients up and fly them from Baghdad back to Germany for medical care. I was stop-lost in 2006. I would have gotten out of the service, but I was deployed to Iraq at the time, just outside of Tikrit. I was a medic. We got mortared a lot, and we always say that when everybody else has to turn away and pull security, we have to turn around and face the damage. My psychological health, I didn't think it was an issue when I came home. You know, I'm gonna be okay. I'm not gonna be one of those people who clams up and doesn't talk about it and can't handle it. And it wasn't until 2.5 years later, when I was in the high stress of graduating from college, you know, writing papers, taking tests, looking for a job, looking for an apartment, everything I've worked for goodness only knows how many years is coming to a close and I don't even know what I'm doing next. And that's when I really started to notice a problem.
When I first got to the unit, she was very driven, dedicated, always wanting to be here, always looking out for her soldiers.
Very outgoing. She was the kind of person that wanted to tackle all the missions.
Very dependable person, very knowledgeable, and always working with her soldiers.
After about 6-7 months after Sergeant Krause came to this unit, I noticed she was sleeping a lot. I was having to call her a lot because she was late. She was very irritable.
She just became disinterested and not really wanting to be a part of the team anymore.
And I think I was the last person to notice it. There was a lot of alcohol involved. And I always just wrote it off as, I'm in college, this is what you do. You know, who cares that I'm 26 years old and I'm drinking a bottle of wine in the evening just to get to sleep. And, you know, a nightmare here or there, I figured was normal, and I would just avoid any triggers that gave me flashbacks. But one of my soldiers actually sat me down over lunch and said, you know, Sergeant Krause, you know as well as I do, I mean, we're medics, you know the signs and symptoms of depression.
I said, I think you might be suffering from PTSD. I think you need to get it checked out. So I went through all the symptoms that I thought she was exhibiting, and I said, I really think it would benefit you and us as a medical section to get it checked out.
And then there was another incident at my unit where one day when I was on drill weekend, I just said, forget this. And I did not go to formation. And Sergeant McCarthy, who's my first line supervisor, what he said to me when I finally answered the phone was, well, why don't you just come in and talk to us? He said, talk to First Sergeant. I've seen him talk to people about this before. He understands. And so, you know, I came in and First Sergeant sat me down and said, he said, you know, I remember the smell of the 50 cal. And we talked for a while. And at the end of it, we were joking and laughing, and it was still First Sergeant. And I was still Staff Sergeant Krause, and I still ran that medical section. And he was okay with that.
Knew something was wrong with her, and possibility of PTSD when she did come back from Iraq and joined our unit. Reason being is because I came back from Iraq in 2005, and I had PTSD too, and that's how I know the symptoms of what Sergeant Krause is going through. I have all the respect for her in the world, and that goes for all the rest of my soldiers that are in this unit.
The VA hospital did something that was really amazing that no one else was able to do. And what that was give me the help I needed, exactly when I needed it, and in a manner to make sense to me. And what I wish that more warriors would realize is that I was getting worse and worse and worse because I didn't go get help. The problem just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and one little thing that you think you can handle suddenly grows into this giant pile of I don't even know what to eat. And if I had just gotten help 6 months before I did, I would have really been better off in the long run. Because it wasn't until I got the emotional help that I needed that I was able to fix the rest of my problems.
She's back to the way she was when I first got in the unit, as far as being a very dedicated NCO to her soldiers, the unit, the mission, training. She's a very outstanding NCO. I think it takes quite a bit of strength in order to admit that you have an issue, but it also takes the intuitiveness of a friend, a leader, a supervisor to pick up on the signal that the soldier is having issues and needs to seek professional help in dealing with it.
I think it shows real strength when someone admits that they need help and gets it, even if they don't want to.